top is AD complied with. And
No.
so then they would think that they did the whole thing, but actually they only did the 25-hour one.
Now let me ask you a
So
question
three more
as a
parts
mechanic. If you sign off all ADs complied with through 2012, what does that tell the owners?
Absolutely nothing.
You know, there's a maintenance record-keeping requirement that you guys who own airplanes should be aware of. It's 91.417, 91.417, and it indicates what you should keep for maintenance records. In Part 91, it also tells you that you are responsible for making sure that Mr. Skinner over here makes the appropriate record entries. So you can crack a whip if he didn't. If you can't figure out compliance with the airworthiness directives based on a statement a mechanic made, then you go back to him and say, what in the heck are you talking about? I'm from Missouri, show me. You know, spell these things out. Because you're the owner-operator. Myself as a mechanic, I'm not going to chase you around the countryside saying, hey, your AD's due in 10 hours. But I should be able to write good enough records that if it's recurring, you know when the next date and time is when it's going to be due. You know how we complied with it. You know what the AD number is and what the rev level is, if there is one. Concise, clear.
This is a shade off topic,
that's okay. We just got off topic with the ADs too.
Won't go too far down the path. Let's assume a manufacturer has gone out of business.
Yeah.
And so now, does the FAA still? How does the AD process or changes? I know the service bulletins come from what the group of mechanics and A&Ps at large.
You're talking orphan type certificates, which
okay.
doesn't mean the FAA still can't issue an airworthiness directive.
True.
They can still issue an airworthiness directive. It's just that I don't believe, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but the FAA hasn't decided what to do with orphan TCs yet.
I only ever encountered one,
yeah.
And that was, we actually kind of made an exception, went back to our own data to support some maintenance actions on the airplane, but typically, if it hasn't been surrendered, meaning the FAA really does, it goes into some netherworld, then somebody has to be responsible for the AD other than the FAA.
So we're still, I guess,
but that specific question about surrendered type certificates, where you know the FAA doesn't own them, isn't responsible for them, but they don't have a holder anymore that is still in limbo.
Yeah.
And so that makes sense. But for example, Taylor craft,
yeah.
BC-12Ds, little cute little airplanes that can just barely kill you. Those guys aren't around anymore, right?
I don't know. I thought somebody bought that type certificate.
Is that what happens?
Yeah, I thought somebody had bought that Tailcraft TC. I could be wrong.
Univair buys a lot of the smaller.
Yeah.
That's okay. That's.
You have to go into the database, and you'll see the first thing right underneath the model block is who owns it.
It seems to be an interesting business, just buying liability.
You're buying liability.
right.
It's a lawyer's dream.
Oh, I don't know.
Susan, before you part, I'd like to be sure and have your email address because I got some questions I want to answer.
Don't worry, I have business cards up here.
Okay, good enough.
I also,
super.
you know, because we got a little behind on trying to get this.
I don't want to burn half hour of your time on
That's
something.
Okay. We have business cards here, and don't forget wings. I'm supposed to remind you your wings. These are all these seminars are eligible for wings.
Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead and next. I think we beat that one to death. Next. Yeah, keep going. Here, you beat this one to death. Aha, here you go. This is the FAA's That's okay. We're safe. This is the FAA's regulatory and guidance library right here. Bingo. The address is rgl.faa.gov. If you want to see a copy of your type certificate data sheet, this is where it resides, right here. You got a link here, type certificate data sheets. Click on it, and you can find yours by make, model, you can search, however you'd like to do it, once you get into the repository. And you'll also notice that if there's an advisory circular you're curious about, you can look them up in here. You got airworthiness directives. You got the old cars and cams and the old aero bulletins for the real old aircraft. You know, just some of the stuff that you get the regulations in here, Code of Federal Regulations, because really they're not FARs, are they? They're really CFRs, aren't they? You got orders and notices. These are internal directives on how the FAA is supposed to conduct business. If you want to buy a part, you're wondering if somebody holds a production approval for it, you can go in here and look it up under parts manufacturer approvals. There's policy, FAA internal policy, that's issued in this repository. Let's see, special airworthiness information bulletins, supplemental type certificates. This one came in handy the other day when I get into my Aroka story in a second. Technical standard order holders, and there's your TC data sheets at the bottom.
So I assume this is HTTP, and then it goes to the RGL, no www?
It's just like that, yeah.
Okay, got it, I didn't see
Yeah,
that
if
there.
you just Google rgl.faa.gov, you don't even have to do the HTTP thing.
Okay.
Keep this one as a favorite on your desktop. It's worth its weight in gold. You know, years ago, when I worked as a mechanic, we used to have to buy subscriptions to this stuff. Back in the old paper days, you probably remember.
Big thick books with revisions,
Right,
equals
sakes.
to each revision.
Especially advisory circulars. So this is where you go to find the latest, greatest information. Okay. So at the end of the day, you decide to buy something. We find out it doesn't fit into anything standard category. It doesn't fit into the standard. Then it could go into experimental exhibition, but can you go forward? Click. Yeah. This really shouldn't be a catch-all. I got into an argument with a guy at the IA seminar here a few weeks back on that, but I'm like, you know, for some reason people have it in their mind that, so what, it doesn't meet the requirements for a standard. I'm just going to ask you to give me an experimental exhibition. Well, it's not supposed to be a catch-all. It's supposed to be for certain things out there, exhibition. You know, you don't really want to get into this world, because then, like I said, you've got to do the program letter once a year. You're given a set of operating limitations you have to abide by. You have flight test hours to fly off, controllability issues, all kinds of things you have to determine. It's much easier to buy an aircraft that meets the requirements for the standard world. You get a standard and off you go, right? You don't have to go do testing, reliability, all kinds of stuff. So, are there any questions about thinking about buying an aircraft and bringing it into the country?
A lot of them, but I'll do it
Yeah.
by email.
I mean, this is,
Be specific.
I'm just touching the bigger chunks right now.
I think the airplane I'm looking at has only been issued a special airworthiness certificate.
Yeah, I've got one of those right now. I got that phone call yesterday. The guy has one that was denied a standard. It's a Italian aircraft, and I said, so why was it denied? The MITO denied, Manufacturing Inspection District Office from the FAA denied it. And I said, why? And he sent me the letter. Well, it was manufactured as a military aircraft.
Mm-hmm.
And then how do you get it in the standard? And I'm like, we'd have to meet the complete standard criteria. Which, if it's something manufactured outside of this country, then the country CAA, the Civil Aviation Authority, manufactured has to give me an attestation saying that at the time it was built, it conformed to the FAA type certificate data sheet. And I'm not quite sure how that, I don't believe you can do that. I don't believe there's a Civil Aviation Authority that would issue something like that for an aircraft that was manufactured for the military. So there's that, there are some of these little weird areas out there. But still, I need that statement. And if I can't get the statement, it's going to get stuck in experimental exhibition.
Why would you even want one like that, though? That's my question.
If you want one, like?
The experimental exhibition is a class that it's useless.
Well, some people, you know, like I'm working on the C-97 project down at Floyd Bennett Field. That's going to be experimental exhibition. It's a flying museum. That's perfect.
Right.
That's exactly what they're going to use it for.
Right.
The AVFR only, just going to fly
why they
around
did
school
that.
kids, Berlin airlift, you know.
Right. That was the intention of that. But,
Yeah.
But to just stick anything in there is like, okay, it's sunny, I want to go flying. Well, I can't because it's not on my list of places to fly.
Right. Yeah, I wouldn't want that restriction. But there are some guys who, you know, they got plenty of money to throw around that like to buy stuff that will be air racing. You know, used for air racing only, and that's fine. And so we have a category for that. That's cool. But what I run into mostly is people who think they bought something that meets a standard that doesn't. You know, they've gotten themselves in a little too deep, put the money down, and like, oh no, we're going to have to go experimental exhibition. Well, maybe not. And I'll walk away from some of this stuff. If it gets too dicey, there's no reason why I should subject myself to liability, you know, like you guys do. I don't need that. Some guys get very insistent. Go ahead and click it forward, please. Yeah. And, you know, I got this question about a month ago. I need a standard airworthiness certificate, but the data plate is missing. Now, these are guys that I've known for years. Cessna 185, bought it from Alaska. And so I'm having a conversation with him. I said, so what did they tell you when you bought the aircraft? What did they tell you happened to the data plate? They said, well, it came from Alaska, and they told me they'd take them off up here so people won't steal them. I said, good answer! I said, I can't, first of all, I can't help you because I don't have the authority to say, yes, you can go to the manufacturer and get a replacement data plate. The FAA office has to do that. So, the second part of it is, I said, I bet you didn't pay a lot for that aircraft, did you? No, I got it for about $25,000. I'm like, I wonder why. So, you know, be careful what you're getting here. It's got to have a manufacturer's aircraft data plate. That's a huge one. And this one didn't, so it kind of makes me think it was probably a bastard stepchild of more than one airplane. Could have been. Or it could have been legitimately removed, and so somebody wouldn't steal it in Alaska, but the logbooks were missing too.
Yeah, they're with the logbooks. That's where the data plate is.
That's right, with the dog. I need a camera hole, and I've had these before. You know, people bring an aircraft in from outside the country and they want to modify it in some weird way, shape, or form. Can you hit the next slide, please? Go ahead. I'll tell you when to stop. I get a call to issue a standard for a 182. Came in from I don't know what country, but at the same time they also wanted to get a I was working for the physio at the time. They wanted a field approval for a camera mount in the bottom belly of the aircraft, and I think the 182 has a partial hole in there. Anyway, some of the older models. Well, this guy had cut a hole in the airplane, and I swear to God, he used the Sawzall. So I'm thinking, I wonder where the owner is in this. I mean, this was, it almost looked like the old days, remember the old bottle openers you do one of these numbers with? It was so jagged. I walked away from this thing. I don't know what happened to that airplane. It was pretty ugly. But I figured, you know what, it's in my rights to walk away from this one. I was thinking, we're going to have to get a structures guy. And that's what I left him with. I said, before it's be eligible after what you've done to it, notwithstanding the conformity that has to be done, you need to get this hole in this aircraft sorted out, probably get a structures designated engineering representative, get it approved properly, and then ask for the standard after that. So if you're bringing something in you want to modify, think about that. That doesn't usually happen, but once in a blue moon it does. That's what I felt like too. Oh my God, I went out there. And I had a young inspector with me who had just got hired, and even he went, ooh, what is that? All right, next. Oh yes, the D.A.R. is not a quality control. So give me some bullets here. Yes, I went to go look at an aircraft. This was export, Cessna 402. The guy goes, yep, it's all ready to go. We were sending it to Timbuktu, I can't remember what country. I go up in the cockpit to get the tack time and stuff, and I look, and there's a cannon plug hanging down, and I went, what the heck is that? And so, of course, me, the curious mechanic, I said, boy, that looks like a turn and bank cannon plug. Sure enough, I look up under there, it's gone. So I asked him, what's this? Oh, we must have missed that. And I'm thinking to myself, wow, if you missed that, what else did you miss? So the D.A.R. is not quality control. When I come out to look at something, it should be in a condition where it's ready to go, especially something like that in export. Even a standard airworthiness certificate. When I get a call and you guys make application for a standard, right there, it should be ready for the standard airworthiness certificate. I shouldn't see things like this. That makes me nervous. When I see that, what does that make you do? Make you look harder? It does. And then I saw panels that were still hanging off without the screws in them, and I'm like, oh boy. Wing attach bolts. This was a King Air coming back into the United States from somewhere in Africa. The wing bolt, this particular model, I think it was 15,000 hours, 15 years. It was some kind of restriction on wing bolts. It was in the type certificate data sheet. It was way past. And an IA had just signed this aircraft, well, an AMP, had just signed a 100-hour inspection off on this airplane. And part of my conformity is to go through and look at the life-limited parts. And so in doing that, this was one of the things I found. This was one of the most egregious things. At the end of the day, when we were done our conformity, it cost the owner of this aircraft upwards of $200,000 to get it in an airworthy condition. This was after it was already signed off. I don't know how you protect yourself against that, other than, in this particular instance, if you are looking for something big like that to buy, take it to a service center. This was not a service center. This was a podunk airport in the middle of Timbuktu in Canada. And there are A&D mechanics out there and IAs that work out there. And they're used to working on general aviation aircraft. Well, they got this big thing in a hangar, and I think it tossed them for a loop. And even at the end of the day, when everything was completely airworthy and finished, the guy takes it, flies it. There's all kinds of sediment in the fuel bladders now, and now you have to change all the bladders. So it was a huge price tag.
Is there a definition of life-limited parts, or can any part be life-limited just by virtue of the fact that it's designated as such on a TC?
Well, it could be designated on the type certificate, but it could also be an airworthiness limitation section. And that part of the service manual would be FAA approved. Now
So for any particular model of airplane or serial number series,
yeah.
the manufacturer decides that the wing attach bolts are, can only go 50,000 hours. But that doesn't mean that all airplanes have to have that.
No, this make and model was restricted, and I think most of the King Airs are. But and the kit itself was $8,000, not to include the labor.
Sure.
But if you look at these large turbine aircraft, they usually have a Chapter 4 because the chapters go by ATA code,
Yep.
and that's where all the airworthiness limitation section information usually resides, right in there. When I look through some of the service manuals in the general aviation world, and what I'm not seeing is I see they'll have an airworthiness limitation section, and it says to be developed. So they haven't got there yet, but they're thinking about it, because some of these aircraft have a ton of hours on them. I think of Cape Air, down at Cape, we're talking 30,000 hours on some of these aircraft. But they completely go through and replace everything. They have these on like a reliability program down there. They strip them completely naked and replace most of the parts on them.
That's something to look into when you're buying a plane is
Yeah.
how it was certified. When you look at the TC, was it Car 3, Car 4, or Part 23? Because Part 23 will have a limitations section in the manual under the instructions for continued airworthiness, which didn't appear on Car 3 and Car 4.
But wait a minute, but the instructions for continuing airworthiness are not technically mandatory, right? ICAs. Airworthiness limitation sections are, and they have to be approved.
Right, but don't you only find those in a Car 23 plane?
Oh, you mean a Part 23 or a... Yeah, there'd be Part 20, Part 25 is when you get up into larger 12.5 and over.
Like a Cessna 182 is the same TC, but it has the Car 3 ones, and then it has the
Part
23 ones. And they're a different animal when you're looking at a limitations standpoint.
I don't think so.
No?
No. What I would be more concerned with is looking at 182. Yeah, the certification based. If I have to go replace a placard, it may have restrictions for placards in there. So I need to know car or 23, which one is it, right? Because they talk about visibility, bordered, the hash mark, or whatever. I lost my train of thought. But the Part 25 aircraft is when you get into, on all of them you get the instructions to continued airworthiness. When you get into Part 25 aircraft, the larger aircraft, or the, the Beech 99, the SFAR 41 planes. Beech 99 Conquest was kind of intermediary. We don't know if they're one or the other, so we're just going to make up that's when the FAA had special federal aviation regulations for those particular aircraft. But they will have a Chapter 4 in those turbine aircraft.
So ICAs do not have to be complied with?
Well, they're suggested or recommended maintenance procedures. Now,
if you don't follow them, though, then by
I would be careful.
Is it not
The FAA, the FAA, if you go on the FAA.gov's website and type in Chief Counsel, and then look at regulations and interpretations, they'll give you some twists that'll make your head spin on
Sure.
these things.
Sure.
Inspection, because you're not obligated, for these small aircraft, they're maintained in accordance with 91 and 43. So at the end of the day, you can technically do a 100-hour inspection, annual inspection, right? That's what you're doing. And then if you have to change the tire, Part 43 says you've got to use the manufacturer's current maintenance manual, right? So that's kind of where you're hooked in. Or other methods, techniques, and practices acceptable to the FAA. Now, what the heck would that be? Well, anything the FAA would buy off on. It could be Advisory Circular 43.13.